YouTube.
Yes. We have something exclusively for you.
Yes, thank you for coming back this week. I know a lot of you left comments, likes.
Yes, to enter our giveaway for having 100 followers, and we're up to 134. So thank you so much.
We appreciate
Remember
you.
to always like the episodes that you watch. Leave a comment if you can, and definitely share with your friends and family if you enjoy what we're doing here.
Yeah, all the love we've been getting, we really appreciate, and this is why we wanted to give something back to you all. So Thank you again. So what we did was we got everyone that followed all the rules, and we put them on the wheel of names. Some of you may have seen it before. So what I'm going to do here is I'm screen recording my phone, and you guys should see it on your screen right now. And me and Stephanie are going to watch this spin live.
Yes. So basically it's a colorful wheel with everyone's names
They're seeing it.
They're watching it.
They're watching it. They're seeing it right now. You don't have to explain it.
Okay.
So I'm going to tap, and here we go. So we have 24 names. So thank you to the 24 of you that follow all the rules and have been supporting us. This is just our little thank you.
And look at y'all who didn't answer. Only 24 people on there. If more of you, your chances could have been good.
Yeah. So, all right. You want to do the honors? Just tap to spin.
Just tap.
The suspense.
That spin was weak.
What do we got? Who is it? Let's see. Oh my God.
No.
Shirley M. Shout out to Shirley M.
Dex, because that was on your name for a minute. And then it was like, nope, Shirley M.
So shout out to Shirley M. And shout out to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for entering. But we're going to reach out to Shirley and figure out how to get you your $50 Amazon gift card.
Yeah. That's what's up.
All right.
So
now
we'll probably do another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe at 250 subscribers.
As we hit these little milestones that you guys are allowing us to hit. Definitely.
So if you share with friends and family, we'll get to that next giveaway sooner.
Yeah. So enjoy episode 6.
Episode 6 is coming
right now. Okay, baby. We are live.
We are live with episode 6 of We Still Like Each Other, the podcast. Welcome back.
I'm Travis.
I'm Stephanie. I'm with the works on Instagram.
Trav, you nerds.
And welcome back. We are excited to have our 6th episode up and running.
Every episode's a milestone, right?
Every episode's a milestone. Consistency is key. I feel like the past couple of weeks I've been getting so many messages from the universe about consistency and about working hard in the beginning of something and like not giving up and not expecting rapid, fast results and success so early on.
Yeah.
So it's been right on time for me. How you feeling?
I feel good. So much positive feedback. Literally no negative feedback. I mean, if anything, it's like you guys are just getting better and better every week. And I love that from the audio visual standpoint. So
no, he told me about a friend of his who was telling him, I'm not gonna lie, Stephanie's laugh was driving me crazy the first couple episodes. Yeah. But it got better now. So we made it work. So I hope my laugh isn't too annoying anymore.
I love your laugh.
It's the same laugh. We just made the volumes and the recording of it better.
Yeah.
All right. So anything you want to tell us about your week?
So first week of my staycation, going great. Did some family activities, just relaxing. Like I said, the most important thing for me was just like having that mental break, that physical break. And you are helping me accomplish that. So thank you. One more week. My birthday is next week. So
everybody say happy birthday to Travis because his birthday is before next week's episode.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
August 17th. I'll be 33. Crazy age. Oh, no.
No, oh my God, babe. So it's kind of hard to like relax and have a complete staycation when you have kids, because it's like their summer break as well. So you're trying to do fun activities.
Our son is expecting an activity every day. Yeah. Every single minute of the day. The fact that he even lets us record this podcast is a miracle. So thank you.
He's good.
Thank you to Eli.
He's been the only child this whole time. So he does okay with his alone time.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll even say, I'm going to just hang out in my room. So he does good. But we've been balancing it. This week for me, I'm not working. I'm tutoring a little bit. I was making sure I planned those family activities for us. I went grocery shopping, adulting.
Ghetto.
But, not too much of an eventful week for me.
That's cool. Listen, at our age, uneventful week is a good week.
Oh, wait.
What?
We had kind of something eventful happen for us. One of our reels went kind of viral. We had like 26,000 views.
Which one was that? Which one was that again?
It's the one that says, what if we could never have sex again?
Oh, it's like, does your mouth still work?
So on Instagram, one of our reels, it went like mini viral.
Yeah.
It has like 26,000 views. And
Which
that was very exciting. I know. We were like,
Yeah, it's cool because, I put effort into those reels. So to see the feedback, it's been positive every time we do it. Yeah. It's awesome.
Definitely. All right. So you ready to get into our topic this week?
Let's do it.
So every time we record one of these sessions, and then throughout the week, we rewatch certain little pieces, as we're creating clips for Instagram or just for our own like self-criticism. We're watching it back.
We're narcissists.
Right? We look like narcissists every time it's playing. We're hearing our own voices
like
over.
We'll be engaged like we didn't record
it. We didn't record it ourselves. But, we're trying to learn from our own selves and see what we can do better.
Yeah.
But what we noticed is the topics we've covered so far are topics that we have to really take a look at our childhood and how our upbringing has impacted those topics, right? So, for example, how has our upbringing impacted our views on marriage, our views on relationships, our expectations in relationships, money? We have very different backgrounds. So our ideas surrounding money, our ideologies surrounding money were different when we got together. So I think it's important for couples to understand that, to take a step back and say,
what led here?
You're this way for a reason, give each other grace and communicate about your past without any shame. So this week, we're going to do that. We're going to go back to some of the topics we already covered. So marriage and relationships, we're going to do money, and we're going to do sex. How has our upbringing, our childhood impacted those things? So we're going to start with marriage and relationships. Go ahead, Travis. You lead us.
Oh, boy. Marriage and relationships. So I'm a product of would you call it a broken home? My parents divorced. I don't even remember them together. I want to say I was maybe 3 or 4 at the time.
So but let's not call it a broken home. Let's call it a blended family.
Well, it eventually became a blended family.
Okay.
So at the time, it was a broken home. It was broke to it. I only know the things that may or may not have happened between them just based off what was told to me. I'm almost 33, so I know nothing is that simple. So I give a lot of people in my life grace, especially my parents, when it comes to them not working out. But like I said, as far back as I can remember, they were never together. Story I was told, my father stepped out, and it just was too much for my mother. And I have a beautiful sister that I love to death because of that. But in the moment, at a young age, it was a lot of anger. I didn't get it. And then it didn't help that I didn't care for my stepfather, the person that my mother remarried. So it was even more anger. Yeah.
So were you angry to see your dad in a different relationship, or or that he wasn't with your mom?
So I did a lot of comparing when I was growing up. I saw, kids at school with their parents, and then just my father was always around, but just that there was no longer that union. So, and I noticed, and then not only wasn't there a union, but then my father had started dating someone else. My mother started dating someone else. So then, that was a whole nother mind fuck for me at a young age.
Yeah.
I didn't communicate obviously as well as I do as an adult. So a lot of that thing I internalized. I feel like I recall one time trying to have a conversation with my father, but
about what specifically? About just, like why they weren't together, or?
Yeah, but I was young, vocabulary, not knowing how to express yourself. It was probably a very bad attempt at trying to express what I feel like I could now.
Okay. How do you feel that being in that situation for, most of your childhood, how did that impact your views on marriage, or like what you wanted for yourself in a relationship? Like, did you ever say, because of this, I want the opposite, or I want this, or I'm never going to do marriage? Like, how did it impact you?
So anyone who knows me, and I think my mom may have even told you this once, Travis doesn't want children. I don't think I was ever vocal about marriage, but I feel like, they went hand in hand. So if I didn't want children, I definitely wasn't thinking about marriage. It was the last thing on my mind. Like I always tell people, they always ask how long I was in my previous relationship. It was almost 8 years. And the thought of marriage literally never crossed my mind once. And that's nothing against her. Yeah. But literally for me, it was just not, it wasn't something that came up.
And for her either, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So I never wanted marriage, never wanted children.
Yeah.
Until I met you.
Yeah. I was going to say, your mom never told me you don't want children. She said before you, he never wanted children. Like, this relationship has brought a different side to Travis. Like, Eli, he's a dad. Like, Travis is a dad to Eli. And I can't picture him not being a dad now. But before you, I just never would have imagined it.
Where was I? So yeah, I never imagined those things because I never had a positive image of those things. My mom did remarry, and it started out great, but it eventually became a toxic marriage. And so they weren't a good representation of what marriage could be.
So then it was 2 failed marriages that you were around.
My father eventually remarried my now stepmother, and their marriage. Now that I'm adult, I can appreciate their marriage. I love their love, but I wasn't in the same household as them. So I didn't get to see those interactions. It was just on visits. So there was no like, oh, one day I want to be just like my dad and stepmom. Yeah. But living with my mom, like I was 99% of my time with my mom, seeing that toxicity, it was like, this ain't for me.
Yeah. And you have an older brother. He's 6 years older than you. So now that you're both grown adults, the age difference doesn't seem so obvious. But growing up, how was that? And like, how did it affect your idea of relationships?
So me and my brother started hanging out when I would say I turned like maybe 17 going into 18, like really hanging out. He'd sneak me into clubs or lounges, like I was his road dog at one point. Yeah. So I didn't really see my brother in serious relationships. Like he had his things, and it was just like, I really just wanted something to add to the conversation. So I watched.
So what conversation?
The conversation of girls. Like my brother was out here, so I was like, how do I add to this conversation? Because when I would be around him and his friends, the conversation was always girls, multiple girls. So it's like, all right, it's your turn. Well, I was with Linda, Felicia, Kim, LaShawn. You get what I'm saying?
Rest in peace, DMX.
But so that was the only thing in my head. Even subconsciously, it was just like, all right, if I started, having conversations with a new young lady, the first person I wanted to tell was my brother. Mm-hmm. If I had sex with a new young lady, the first person I wanted to tell was my brother. Or like, yo, look at what Stephanie texted me.
Which I know he did.
And it's nothing against my brother. It's just, at his time in his life, he wasn't in a serious relationship. And then, even when he eventually did get into a serious relationship, I feel like I was in too deep at that point. So like, even if he was showing me a positive image of what a relationship could be, I was just like, I'm for the streets already. Like, there's no going back. You can't, unmake the vampire. I said a lot, but yeah, that's a little bit of my story with like marriage and relationships. And are we going to talk about like what my view is on them now, or?
No, I think that's good. Just like what the past was. And what I was going to say next is whenever we encountered our relationship issues, per se, I couldn't ignore all of that history, because there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen when you're a grown adult in a committed relationship with another grown adult who has a completely, totally different experience. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump into kind of my experience a little bit and how it kind of blends with yours in a way. So my biological father was never there for me or my sister. I'm the eldest of 5 children. So I grew up very independent and mature really fast, so I was able to help my mom. My mother never spoke poorly about my biological father. She kind of allowed me to see it for myself. And those stigmas and stereotypes that are out there about Dominican men, those were the men I knew in my family. The womanizers, the ones that wouldn't come home at night, the ones that would come home pissy drunk. I never personally experienced any domestic abuse, thankfully. But, all those stereotypes I heard, I've had family friends that were involved in all that kind of stuff. So I always thought I would never be married just because I always felt I was too independent, too headstrong, that I wouldn't be able to deal with someone coming home drunk. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be able to deal with the cheating, because I would literally lose my shit and become this angry, irrational person. So in my mind, based on that limited experience, I always thought I just wasn't built for a relationship, because I thought relationships meant putting up with something that you shouldn't have, right? Gotcha. But I did end up getting a stepfather that I love dearly, and he's my dad. Like, if I ever mention my dad, I'm talking about my stepdad. He was a provider, 100%. He always worked really hard. Food on the table, a roof over our head, and all of the necessities that we needed. But he didn't provide any emotional support at all.
And her father is still very just dry. What's that thing you say I have?
Resting Mitch face.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he has it, because like mine is like looks a little angry. His is just blank.
Yeah. Like, my friends will always be afraid of him for some reason, and he's not scary like at all. Like, he is kind and generous, but you have to like seek it. Like, he comes home for example, he will come home from work. He had a fish tank. He'd go straight to the fish tank, feed his fish, whatever he had to do with his fish, and would never say hi to us. He wouldn't acknowledge us. He didn't give my mom a kiss, like hello, after coming home from work. He never came home with stories from work, like, oh, let me tell you what happened. He was very like, work is work. And when I'm home, he was just like mute. It's just his personality. Like, he's very introverted. And then my mom would complain a lot about him, right? And as a teenager, I would be angry with my mom for complaining. because I'm like, here's this man who's taking care of your whole family, your kids that you had previous to him, the kids you had together. He never goes out drinking and comes home drunk. He doesn't beat you. He doesn't cheat on you. What are you complaining about? Because my limited view of love and relationships, he seemed like perfect.
Like he checked all the boxes.
He checked all the boxes. He didn't cheat, didn't drink, didn't beat you. What are you complaining for? Mm-hmm. And he was providing without questions asked, without complaining, not only for his 2 biological children, but all 5 of us. So I used to be angry with my mother. Like, how dare you? But then as I got older, you know, I understood. As a woman, my father seriously lacked the ability to love a woman.
The romance.
The romance, none. He didn't really believe in holidays, and not because of religious reasons, just because he felt like it was capitalistic, which to a sense he's right. But we live in a society where those things are important now. And I would have to, to this day, I text my dad, tomorrow's Mother's Day, to text my mom and his new wife. He lives with his own wife and he probably won't even say anything to her because that's just how he is. I remind him when it's my siblings' birthdays so he could reach out to them. Is his personality. But it took until I became a woman and I was in my own relationships to understand that my mother needed both. She needed a provider, a good husband, and a lover. Yeah. And he was never both of those things. So I feel like who my dad was impacted my relationships and my expectations, because my dad is that typical, he could build you a house type of man, you know?
So she went and married me for some reason. So I am not Bob the Builder.
So sometimes, and like how I said, he's super dry and no emotions. So that means he never complained about anything. He could be dying sick and no one would know. He broke his toe once. Nobody knew a thing. So sometimes when I hear men complaining, I be like, what the fuck? Man up.
Not sometimes. All the time. I've
gotten better.
She's gotten better, but early on, I legit had to show proof of my ailments in order to get any kind of TLC. If I came and accidentally chopped my arm off, she'd be like, "Really?
Is it that bad?
Is it that bad?
Can't they put it back on?" No, I'm kidding.
I'm glad that when I had COVID a few months ago, I had hardcore symptoms, because if I just had COVID with no symptoms, you would have just been like, come on, man.
It was hard, me dealing with the COVID patient in my house.
She's like, my father would never. He would break this fever in 4 hours.
So yeah, that shit is toxic as fuck, but I've gotten better. But like I said, I've never been around men who I feel are, oh, this is what I want or I expect. So I kind of was making shit up in my own head, what I wanted from men. I don't know. I feel like maybe some of my expectations were so unrealistic because I never had a good example of what a man should be doing. Yeah.
One of the things that you, till this day, still bring up, something you picked up from your mother. Mm-hmm. Your mom don't take no shit.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about me and Steph have gotten into a few conversations, and if I raise my voice to a certain level, she's looking at me like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
Because her amazing mother does not accept that type of shit from any person, let alone someone she's calling her partner.
Yeah. So I've never witnessed my mom be yelled at by a man or mentally or verbally abused, physically abused, held to the nose. So I'm never going to be that type. I remember one time talking with a group of girls, and one girl's recalling when she got slapped, and I was shocked. And then the other girls are laughing and they're like, you never got slapped before? I said, hell fucking no, not me.
They made it sound like a rite of passage.
It's just something that happens, which I'm joking about it, but that shit is crazy. Young women out there, you shouldn't be taking any type of physical abuse from anybody. But I know that I didn't think I was going to mention this on this episode, but my mom lost her parents to murder suicide. So I think that's part of the reason she's like that.
Yeah.
And my mother's really closed off. Like, I know that that's how she lost her parents, and I was 5 years old when it happened, and I kind of slightly remember certain details. But she's never spoken about it. Like, she's never said, this is why I'm that way. I don't know if she's ever even witnessed domestic violence growing up. Like, I don't know if that was just an isolated, terrible incident. My mom's very closed in. But I do know that that's why she don't take no shit from nobody without her having to tell me. It's like, you can assume that. So yeah, that definitely has impacted who I am. So now I know sometimes when there are women my age who are putting up with or dealing with and find it difficult to like hold a man accountable when they're being loud or being threatening, is because they didn't have a mother like mine. And I got to understand that. Like, it all depends on what they grew up around and what they experienced. But yeah, no, I don't even like, because physically, men, no matter what, are stronger than women, right? So even if we got into a heated argument, the minute it gets physical, there's no way I can outpower you in any sense of the way. So even if I just feel intimidated vocally, I shut down because like I don't want it to lead there. But yeah, we kind of went off for a while.
I do want to take a little step back because I don't know. I feel like I speed run my whole family dynamic.
Okay.
So like Travis, as a 33-year-old man, almost 33-year-old,
almost 33,
I can look back at the situations between like my mother and father, and I have a lot of grace because even though the young me may have hated that they weren't together, the older me, the wiser me understands that sometimes things they just don't work out. Sometimes people aren't meant to be. They did what they had to do. They had me and my older brother. There was lots of love there when they had us, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm also very grateful for the fact that they both have found partners that they are, wildly or madly in love with. I consider my stepmother my mom, like when I call her as mom. And to even have that relationship now is insane to me because as a kid, it was just like, who's this lady?
Yeah.
And, I love her as much as any one of my parents. And same for my mom and her partner. I think I've mentioned this before, but my mom is a lesbian. I think she's a lesbian. Is my mom a lesbian?
I think so. You think she might be bisexual?
I don't know. Whatever.
No, I think she's a lesbian.
Yeah. So
she's married to a woman.
She's married to a woman. Yeah.
We gotta have a discussion with
yeah. And I love her wife. Same. That's my mom too.
Yeah.
We always say our kids are so lucky because they have so many grandmoms or grandmothers.
Yeah. A lot of grandmothers.
So there's a lot of grace there. I wouldn't have my sister from my dad. I wouldn't have my brother from my mom if they hadn't separated, and I can't imagine my life without them now. Yeah. So like I said, younger Travis may have had a hard time grasping it, but almost 33-year-old Travis is like, I can't imagine my life any other way.
And that could also speak to people currently who are in relationships and they're trying to hold on to it for children. One thing that I hold true in our relationship is that which is going to sound crazy to some people, but Travis and I come first before the children. And some people be like, oh, how dare you? You're a mother.
Fuck them kids.
But if Travis and I are not okay, we cannot be good for our children.
Yeah.
So that's why I say we come first. And it doesn't mean that we're putting our priorities and our needs above what our children need. If you know me personally, my son is well taken care of and brilliant and well-rounded and well-behaved, well-mannered, super active, super loved. there's nothing missing there.
Say super active one more time.
Very active. He has energy for days. But if Travis and I didn't take care of us first, we wouldn't be able to make him that way. In taking care of each other first, we're setting a good example for him as to his future relationships. By putting each other first, we're not arguing in front of him. He has seen us like get a little like tense in front of each other, and he notices and he'll ask questions, but I feel like that's healthy. No, if a kid grows up not ever seeing their parents disagree, I don't think that's normal.
Yeah.
But if you feel like that connection isn't okay, staying together just for the child is going to do the complete opposite of what you wanted to do. Yeah, like my situation's a little bit different, but I have never, ever wished my mom stood with my dad. Never, ever in a million years. But I know your parents were together, married actually for a while. So it's a different situation. And then you actually had your father in your life and you saw him with another woman, whereas my father was just never around. No. So it's different.
And even now as an adult, I can say what strength my mom had to realize she wasn't dealing with that. Like whatever, whatever happened, and she decided to step away. And, that takes bravery because there are women out there who stick through that. And not saying that there's anything wrong with the women that do decide to
try to make it work.
But for her, she knew that for her, it didn't make sense. It didn't work for her. So, kudos to her for taking that leap because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We spoke a lot about marriage and relationships. We could probably go on forever and it'll probably come up again. And maybe we'll have a disagreement one day and we'll trace it back to our childhood experiences and trauma or whatever. But point being is when you have your disagreements and your discussions, take a second and think back on how their life before you impacted who they are and their perspective.
And how important it is to have these conversations about, things before you. You can't just meet someone, fall madly in love and think the life starts when you two start because there's so much history of things that happen way before you, family, relationships.
That applies to motherhood too. Like we put so much pressure, or parenthood, I guess, we put so much pressure to be this perfect parent as if we didn't live a whole life before we had a kid. Like we can't forget who we are as individuals. We can't forget the experiences that raised us. We can learn from it to help us become better parents than our parents were to us. Not that they were bad parents, but with every generation, we expect to get a little better, right? But give yourself grace in parenthood as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you ready to go on to money? Money growing up.
You take it first.
You want to go first? Okay. So money in growing up was tough. My mother has always worked really hard. She had to have 2 jobs. She had 2 jobs. But being the eldest of 5 kids, that ended up putting a lot of responsibility on me. So when my mom was really busy working 2 jobs, I was really busy helping her raise her kids, My stepdad was an immigrant, so he always worked really, really hard. But those first few years, how much money was he really making? So we were basically making ends meet. And with 5 children, you can imagine. But I would say that from my parents, I've learned how to be super grateful for what we have and how to be generous no matter how little we had, because my parents were the type that if I have friends over, my friends were all eating dinner before they ate dinner. My dad would come home from work, and if he saw that one of us wanted seconds or thirds, he would let us before he packed his lunch for work the next day. We were very giving. If my mom was out on the block and the ice cream truck came, if we were playing with a couple of other kids and she didn't have enough money for all of us, she wouldn't buy us ice cream.
And your mom's still the same way.
She's still the same way. Like, if my little friends were with me, we all needed to get ice cream. She's still like that.
I remember one time I was sick and you were on a trip, and I told your mom, can you please come get Eli? I'm not feeling well. And she came fully prepared to cook in the kitchen and make soup. And I was just like, I just wanted to be like in bed and alone so quickly that I was just like, no, it's okay. But that moment always showed me like what I've seen in other occasions, that your mom is just so giving.
Yeah. We didn't always have a lot, but whatever, if she had $10, everybody had $1 around her. Like, she's always been like that. However, I'm going to compare like my dad and my mom. My dad is known as being super cheap. Any necessity like school clothes, books, a computer for school, those things, he didn't care.
Like everybody hates Chris cheap?
Yeah, kind of. Like, he installed a light in our bathroom switch that was on a timer, because we would always leave the bathroom light on. So he put a timer on that shit so the light bill wouldn't go up. For years, we only had one air conditioning in my parents' room. So on really hot days, we would bring like a mattress into my parents' bedroom and we all slept there. Like, that's how tight money used to be at times. You know, I lived in a shelter for a couple of months. My mom's was on Section 8, you know, but I never felt like super poor or sad, or I never went hungry, but I couldn't have every single latest sneaker, or we didn't go on family vacations like that. My parents didn't get a car until I was like almost going to college. They got their first car and their license. Like, you know, we grew up very minimal. My dad, like I said, was super cheap, but that's why he always was able to hold us down, because he always was prepared for a rainy day. It would be frustrating as a kid because you're like, I want this candy, or I want this toy, or I want these sneakers to be down. And he'd be like, no. But then my mother, on the other hand, had a little bit of a different philosophy. She was more so like, we only live once. If I die, this money ain't coming with me.
She was the creator of YOLO.
Yes. So my mom was totally different, which meant they used to bump heads about that a lot. And then, of course, me growing up, I would pick sides depending on what I wanted at the time. You know, like, I thought my dad was cool when I needed a laptop and he had the money for it. But then I thought my mom was cool when she was like, here's $200 for some J's, even though she should have saved that $200 for some rent or something else, you know? So I basically, and with that being said, there was no discussion about home ownership. There was no discussion about retirement money. There was never any money put away for college for us. So money was very like, you work hard for what you want and that's it. Like, I didn't really...
It comes and goes.
It comes and goes, but I've always been working. Since like 13 years old, I was babysitting. I got my working papers. For some reason, I never got called for summer youth. I would apply every year. They never called me, but I always found a job. Like, I always worked. So if you know me now, I'm a workaholic still to this day. Like, I have a little bit of free time. I think I should have another job.
Yeah.
But it's also because I don't know how to manage money. I have learned a lot in the past couple of years. But instead of me saying, how can I manage the money I'm making? I always thought I just need to make more money. So I would work harder and harder and harder.
We've learned more money does not mean you're going to learn how to balance
manage
your books.
No, more money does not mean you're budgeting and have extra money. There's people who make very little and have everything they need. And then there's people who make 6 figures and are broke as hell. They're living paycheck to paycheck. So, yeah.
Money. So hearing your story is like, I don't like, do I tell my story?
Yeah, yours is very different.
It's very different. So, you know, I've always lived in when I was young, I lived in a home that my grandmother owned. It was like a 2-family house. So I always lived in a home. My mom kept the job. My father was, I believe he was in the Air Force. And then when they found out he was having me, he got a job as a correctional officer. So he had the Air Force and corrections. My mom always worked some type of corporate job I'm thinking back at it, she was probably making really good money at the time. Father, even though they split, he was providing via child support. And I literally always got what I wanted. Like I wouldn't say spoiled, because I wasn't one of those kids like, I see it, I want it. It would just be like Christmas was always lit. Or I remember like from elementary to junior high school to high school, I had a lot of the same classmates. And they, even up to high school, they always would think, Trav was rich because in first grade, his mom came and brought everyone McDonald's. So that's the type of things my mom would do. Some days in school, she would just come take me out and say, come to the office, because, she felt like she hadn't seen me in a while. So things like that. And then I would go there and use up all their printer paper. So money, I never thought about it. It was just there. We had a roof over our head, food in our stomach, probably too much food in our stomach. Anything I asked for, I got within reason.
Yeah. And
then even when they separated and my mom remarried, my stepfather was a real hard worker, immigrant, but worked hard. And even though he was like a shitty husband, he was still a good provider. So you combine my mom keeping a corporate job, my hardworking stepfather, and my father providing child support, a lot of money coming in.
Yeah.
And I never wondered about it. It's not to say that if you have a conversation with my mom, she might say there were some tough nights, but I never felt it. I never felt it at all. I wasn't, the Travis you see now into sneakers and clothes. That was later on in life when I could do it myself. So my brother more so would probably ask for Jordans and stuff like that. I was just, get me a clean pair of, Air Force Ones and I'll be okay for a few months. So I do think that it wasn't the best thing for me, because becoming an adult, I just never had a full grasp of money and how you're supposed to maneuver with it.
Like you made me think of how he said he never noticed if there was an issue with money. Whereas with me, it was just a consistent issue with money. So like, even when they would send me to the bodega to buy bread and milk or eggs, I would have to walk 2-3 extra blocks to the bodega that had the milk $1 cheaper. If I did just need eggs or something, all the supermarkets having a sale, go there instead. So like, I always was aware of like scarcity in money. So you were saying coming into the relationship, how do you think those opposite upbringings kind of impacted us?
Well, in the beginning, like, I think when we spoke about money, I jokingly said it was like just swipey. And there was truth to that. Like I wanted to impress you. I wanted to take you out. I wanted to buy you things. I didn't. But then, the longer we're together, the more we're like, oh shit, this is going to be something real. We see a future with one another. And then, very early on, like we've discussed, like it was like, yo, what are we doing? Because you're swiping like crazy, but then the money's,
is on credit cards or paying interest. Like we're past you trying to impress me, because I'm no longer impressed, because now it's like phony and fake.
This is real life shit now. And that, connecting it to my childhood, like I just never, money comes in, or the money came in like from the job I worked, but I never knew how to allocate it properly. I never knew, you're supposed to put some of this aside for your necessities, save this and that. And it was just like, it came in, I'm going to figure it out. Like, even before you rent, I didn't have my first job until I was out of high school. So 18 years old, I'm working retail, I think Bed Bath & Beyond. And at a certain point, the child support that my mom was getting, she just said, here.
You can have it.
You're 18. Don't ask me for anything. Which was her, she was fake tough in that sense, because if I needed it, she would still give it to me.
Even though you had the child support.
So I had a little job at Bed Bath & Beyond, child support, and a mom who would back me up if shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then, obviously as I got older, I started getting better jobs, more pay, but still there was no structure. I was just kind of like freeballing, or not freeballing. I'm freeballing now. I mean, freestyling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I always worked so hard and I didn't know how to properly manage my money, but I couldn't depend on someone else if I didn't make it work. So that was something I had to make sure I did. Like, I would go to my mom and honestly, she would like give me free range. Like, I would take some toilet paper, some peanut butter, some tomato sauce, because my mom always food shops at BJ's and stuff. But I couldn't say like, I can't pay this bill or I need cash. Like, that's just the type of support I didn't really have, you know? My dad could be more of a financial support because he has always been so responsible with money that he always has emergency money.
Till this day.
Till this day. But he's not going to openly just give you money because you're mishandling yours.
Yeah.
Right? So he would give me a whole big speech. Sometimes he would tell me no. But in an emergency, or if he sees that like I'm in school or I'm working or whatever, he'll help me out here or there. But it comes with a speech. It comes with a guilt trip. He done made me cry more occasions than one, just talking about money management, the future, like saving for a rainy day, not living for other people. Like, he's very like basic necessities and that's it. So think about, and then how we're talking about our past and how it impacts, he grew up dirt poor in the Dominican Republic, like walking miles to do shit, not always having running water. He spent a lot of time with his grandfather in the campo, which is like the countryside. So he just grew up even with less. So that scarce mentality impacts how you move with money. So yeah. We had to figure it out for ourselves because we also live in a different era, a different time than they did.
Yeah.
So they've influenced us, but not for the world we're in right now. So it's kind of tough.
It's crazy. Like, obviously, I knew these things about you, but it's also like, it's a lot hearing it, like hearing your story, then hearing mine right after it. It's like, who is this guy? Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we met because it's I feel like if I was in a relationship with someone who grew up like me, we probably would just continue to spiral.
Yeah.
We would have there would never be that aha moment. Whereas you kind of had to have that moment at a very young age, even though you maybe weren't always the best at the management part of it, it was always still in the back of your mind. So, like I said, if I ended up with anyone else, who knows where my life would be. So, that's something I'm very appreciative of you for, that you brought that into my life, like that accountability with money. Even
though some people would say I was trying to use you.
For all my money.
I don't know. He ain't have shit. I don't know. I always say, like, when Travis and I met, he had a decent job for a single man. It's not like I saw him and I was like, ching ching, this is like my ticket and I could just live free, and like it wasn't realistic. But to some people, they see
it's just I know what it was. It was one, single mother, and then that Bronx stigma, like everything's worse in the Bronx. So then people from other boroughs think they're better than the Bronx. So it's like single man, no kids, decent job. She just want his money. When it's like, in reality, my money couldn't get us shit.
You could support yourself pretty much. It wasn't like you were going to come in and save me, But yeah, let other people tell it. But, we're past that. How about sex? This is the last topic in this little segment. And you kind of talked about it a little bit with like your brother.
Yeah.
And like,
So sex. Yeah. And this is no knock. Like I said, it's no knock against my brother. It's just like how he was living.
All of this that we're talking about, we all have good relationships with our families. My mom, your brother, your parents. It's not like we're judging them or wishing they did anything different. We're just analyzing the situation, and we know that they all did what was right in the moment and at the time, and with the experience and the information that they had at the time.
Yeah.
No one's here like bitter or upset with anybody in our families.
So as a child, like I said, parents divorced young. I kind of pretty young knew why they divorced, because there was my sister was the product of it.
Yeah.
So, infidelity was something that was in the back of my mind at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, when I got older and I was having sex, I lost my virginity at 16. I had my brother who was out here in these streets, and I wanted to relate to him. So it's like, all right, I need some real shit. I can't be lying. Yeah. I gotta live my raps. So I'm out here, going through them, and I'm being a hoe. There's no other way to. I don't know. Am I allowed to say hoe? Like, are we hoe?
That you were hoe? Yeah.
It's not hoe shaming, because right?
No, okay. Hoe is life.
And so I always wanted to bring stories to subconsciously. I never sought out anyone thinking this is someone else I get to conquer. Mm-hmm. That was never. But maybe subconsciously it was just like, all right, now I got some more stories for the fellas when they asked, or.
It's so funny. Like, I don't want to cut your story off, but I know a big part of my connection to sex is like the opposite of yours. Like, in terms of you needed those numbers up to talk about. Whereas as a woman, we're so shamed that I needed to keep my numbers down. Like, I used to literally log my sexual partners, and like, if I wanted to have sex with someone, I had to debate, like, is it worth adding a name to this list? Like, what the fuck?
And
but
whereas
we'll get to that.
The opposite, and I was like making a list, and I'm
hoping to add to it. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, list got crazy. So there was never an aha moment until, everyone knows our story. I feel like that was the aha moment.
Yeah.
So that's my relationship with sex, is just like have a lot of it with different women, mm-hmm. and talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that no one ever forced me to do those things. It was just kind of like,
picked it up.
I picked it up. This is what's happening. I get positive reactions when I'm talking to the fellas about it.
And honestly though, I'm going to ask you, because I don't think I've ever asked you this, but did you feel like you got that positive reinforcement even beyond your brother and your friends? Like, what about your parents or cousins, other people in your family? Because I feel like a lot of times, even within families, they praise boys when they're sexually active.
So definitely among the male cousins.
Okay.
And then when it came to the female cousins, it was more so like, it was just like they laughed it off. Mm-hmm. Just like, boys being boys. Or
did you ever get held accountable for your
Never.
infidelities?
Never.
Womanizing?
Never.
Yeah, that's something I hope to break in our family, because I don't want to tolerate and accept Eli being a womanizer and me like supporting it or giving him the space and opportunity to do it in my house, in my face.
And also, like, a little in their defense, not mm-hmm. everyone knew what I was doing.
Okay.
I was kind of like a ninja out here, like. There's a few names on the list I wouldn't be proud to talk about.
Yeah. Yo. Oh my God.
So it's not to say that I was just out in the open with it and it was just like, oh, look at Travis doing his thing. It wasn't like that. So, I don't get on them for that, because most of the time they didn't know. I'm
gonna put you on the hot seat.
Okay.
So that first year we were together.
Okay.
Remember I talked about how shit hit the fan
mm-hmm.
with your ex? Like, it was like August, September time. I had met your whole family before that. So did they not know what was going on? Remember I met your family, it was like 4th of July. They met Eli and everything.
Yeah, so by the time you met my family, it was they may have like seen my ex like pretty recently, but at that point, that was when I was like, all right, it's like a coming out party. Like, okay,
I'm going to be with Stephanie.
I'm going to be with Stephanie. So at that point, they didn't think anything of it, because it's just like, and more so is me trying to convince them like, no, I'm really done with it. this is Stephanie now.
Even though he still had his little.
And then even my little back and forth was done like in the shadows. Yeah. Like I wasn't like still involving family or no, not at all. So, give them give them a pass.
All right. I put him on blast.
I guess a lot of what, now that I'm like talking through it, a lot of what I did was done in the shadows.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe there was that slight shame, like it's cool amongst the guys, but in reality, it doesn't look that good.
Yeah, definitely.
So what about you and sex? Well, you said you didn't have sex until you met me.
Oh yeah, Eli was immaculate conception. Sex and me was weird because my mom never like sat me down to talk about sex. But since I'm the eldest and, my mom is fairly young, like she had me at 19, I kind of was allowed to listen in on adult conversation. So I was picking up information secondhand. And I feel like she knew that, but she never directly spoke to me. And I feel like if we ever did speak directly about sex, it was because we were having a conversation with her friends or my other cousins, but it was never like a mother-daughter, like one-on-one talk. But I picked up on things like my mom never shamed like teen pregnancy, but she said, that's on you. You having a baby. I ain't raising that kid. So you better wrap it up. Like she never said like, don't have sex, don't have kids. She was more so like, wear a condom. Because if you have a baby, you taking care of it. That kind of thing. But it also was never a one-on-one conversation. It was just kind of like that casual womanly banter amongst friends or whatever. So like I never... Also, my mom, she got her period like super, super young. And she thought she was dying. She didn't know about it. She only had 3 older brothers. Her parents were older and they kind of just never talked to her about it. So I always knew about that stuff early. But it was very like casual. Like my mom would like pass me pads and my cousins would talk about that stuff. But I never like talked about pleasure or about urges or about curiosity and like consent, what wasn't consent. About, boys would try to get in your pants and these are the signs. Like I never had any of that. I kind of learned. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to piggyback off. When I was saying like I'm talking about like these sexcapades with like my brother and friends, it was, I never had a conversation about sex, like how to put on a condom or STDs or just the impact of having sex with someone, like what that could mean. Yeah. It was just like get in, bust a nut, keep it moving. Okay. But there's that there's like there's a psychological aspect to it that, no one ever sat me down and talked to me about these things. So I guess we're very similar in that.
Yeah, like, and then when I did start having those like urges and curiosities, I thought that made me like less of a woman. Not less of a woman, but less of a respectable woman. Like I thought it wasn't natural for me to feel the way I was feeling. Like I owned how I felt and I was very like with my friends, like we talk about sex or guys or whatever. But I thought like I would always be judged for that. Like, and I also thought that like men wouldn't respect me for having these thoughts and feelings about sex. Because it didn't seem normal. Like you have urges. So those conversations were never had. And even through college, like I feel like that is true for me and a lot of women. And I'm telling you what I said about making my list and like making sure it wasn't getting too long or that the guys that were getting on it were worth it. Like this whole thing, like if you just can't have sex because you want to have sex, is so fucking dumb. Like in college, on more than one occasions, I was called a hoe. Mind you, I didn't have that many sexual partners in college. But just because I was never in a relationship with anyone in college.
The optics.
The optics were like, and it's like, I regret giving a fuck about all of that, like so much. But yeah, sex was always like, I knew I enjoyed it, but I thought it made me like a hoe, you know? And I don't stigmatize that word anymore, but I'm using it in the context that it was used in society, or it still kind of mostly is. I do wish I was more free with my sexuality for my early 20s. Like, what the hell? Why was I
you wish
worried?
you caught a few more bodies?
Yes, I wish I caught a few more bodies. Like, I have some regrets. Yeah, like stupid shit. Like, I just hated that I allowed what other people might think dictate what I did with my own body.
Yeah.
Like, that shit is so stupid. And I'm not saying just be open and do whatever, like, do what you want, but be safe and don't let people take advantage of you. I feel like that should be what's discussed with women. Have sex when you want, with men and women you want to be with, not dirtbags that are just trying to, you know, swindle you into sex. That's what the topic should have been. Versus like, keep a low number. Like, who gives a shit how many bodies you got? Like, honestly, as long as you're being safe, no one cares. And if you really care, you could lie. You're like, who's gonna come check you? I got 5 bodies. Tell me different. Go find all the people I fucked. Like, who cares?
Okay.
But yeah, Travis is like, oh God.
No, listen. I'm here for the whole shit. I don't.
And by whole shit, we mean sexually liberated shit. You know, when we talk about whole shit, that's what we mean. Like, sex is a part of nature. Sex feels good for a reason. We're supposed to enjoy it. I feel like as long as you're respecting yourself, you're respecting the people you're trying to have sex with. Like, I don't like the culture men have when they're just trying to get their numbers up. Yeah. So then they're just like using manipulation and gaslighting to get with women. That shit is crazy. But I also feel like the flip side, like telling women, you know, keep a low number. Are you sure you want to have sex with him? That's gonna add a body. Who gives a shit? Yeah. Like, that also shouldn't be. There needs to be a more middle ground based on consent, respect, and desire. You know, like doing what you want when it feels good, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah. Sex. I love it. Do you love it?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's fun.
I love it with you.
I hope you do.
What do we got next?
All right. So our next thing, we're going into our segment, Media Love.
Okay.
And I want to give a shout out to the first podcast that I ever really got into and I still watch, because I'm a visual person, which is why our podcast also has a YouTube channel. So if you're a visual person like me, watch us on YouTube. And the podcast is called Whoreible Decisions.
I put you on.
Travis put me on because he watches a couple of other podcasts that are in the same network.
Yeah. Brilliant
Idiots, which I also like. I watch it with you. But Whoreible Decisions is hosted by 2 women from the Bronx, which, you know, gets me excited. They're from the Bronx. They're from Florida originally.
Okay.
Mandy's from Florida, I think.
They're both from Florida, and I think Mandy was living in the Bronx. I don't know about Wheezy, but I could be wrong.
Okay, maybe, but they're New Yorkers.
Yeah.
One of them is definitely from the Bronx, but they were both women working in corporate. They're like in their early 30s, but they like sex. They enjoy sex, and they kind of started their podcast to talk about women who work 9 to 5s and still like to fuck, and it shouldn't be so stigmatized. So their show is really good if you're into the raunchy sex talk. Like, I'm telling you, they hold nothing back.
Yeah, people think we kind of get a little raunchy sometimes.
No,
they're like,
this is like next level raunchiness. I'm talking about sex clubs, fetishes you've never heard about. Yeah. They have guests on their shows that are like dominatrix and subs and all different types of things. They taught me what an Alabama waffle is. Google if you want, but
hold on. Disclaimer: do not just go and Google that.
It's gonna be kind of intense.
It's very graphic. Actually, I'm about to cut this out the episode. Do not Google that.
If you want, it's, we can't kink shame. So that's one of their things. They don't kink shame. So their platform is very open for people to share the different types of things they're into with sex.
I think they want to like destigmatize kinks in the Black community. Yes. Because, it's always like white people do the craziest sexual things. But it's like,
that's white people shit. But it's like
really. It's human shit.
It's human. Exactly. But yeah, so on that show, recently they had an episode with a married couple, which I want to talk about. Okay. Like I kind of want to give our input on their perspectives as a married couple as well. So the couple is Sham Booty. She's actually very Instagram popular. She's a sexologist, psychologist, an intimacy expert. And her husband, who I don't really know much about, but his name is Jared. And I do know he has his own podcast, but I honestly don't know much about him.
I think it's called like Enjoy the Podcast, something like that.
But yeah, I don't really know what the content is, like what his niche is or whatever. So do you remember when they talked about how pregnancy impacted their sex life?
Yeah.
So what do you remember from that? And how did you feel?
He was saying that it wasn't bad, but it was different. He described her vagina as more fluffy. And it was harder to do certain positions, if I'm not mistaken.
Do you remember that he said it was awkward because he felt like the baby was in the room?
Yes. I do remember that part. And they made some pretty funny jokes about that.
So how did you feel like me being pregnant?
I don't know, close your eyes.
We weren't announcing the name. You have to mute that. Oh.
I'll mute it.
We will announce the name soon.
Okay. Yeah. So
you threw me off.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you. So, but tell me more. Give me.
I don't think about it. Like, if anything, I love the changes that's happening to your body. Your boobs are bigger. You're more to hold on to. The fluffiness, that's debatable.
Mm-hmm. The fluffiness. Oh, well, the vagina.
Vagina. I don't.
You
know.
Don't see it as like the same.
It's like the same. Still A1 vagina. Grade A vagina. Maybe a little more moist. Can I say that?
Yeah. I did ask the doctor. I was like, I'm noticing some changes there. She goes, that's the estrogen. So yeah, it is more moist.
So yeah, it doesn't bother me. I don't think about our baby in those moments. Like,
yeah. So we learned that sex is good for the baby. So in the episode, they talk about that. So I knew that sex is good for like when you're trying to like preparing for labor because, whatever, it helps with the movement and, your baby comes out of there. But apparently even during pregnancy, like the stress relief that sex gives the woman is good for the baby. And they even talked about how at one point sex felt like a chore because they were having sex because it was good for the baby.
Oh, yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did say that. I don't know. I don't think we're there.
How do you think our sex life has been impacted? Like how often we have sex?
I think we're having it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Increased sex drive.
Definitely increased sex drive. The blood is flowing to the right spot. Yeah, I'm not like a average guy. Like I'm not one of those, oh, you're pregnant, you're delicate, I'm still throw you across the bed.
I also feel like the changes in my body have made a big impact on our sex life because I'm like in the mirror like, damn, I look good. And you're like, yeah, you look good. I feel like we're both kind of like really enjoying my body now. And it's like interesting to see because we're starting to, my belly has been very small most of the time. And it's recently starting to be more of a pronounced belly. And we're noticing the changes. I'm like,
so like, missionary is a little harder.
I'm like, I got to make sure I'm holding my hands because you'll get carried away.
But yeah, I'm not. That doesn't bother me at all. If I'm enjoying it to the point where I'm like, when can we do this again?
Yeah. Another interesting thing on this podcast that they talked about was they have a rule in their relationship regarding sex.
Mm.
And they said they got a lot of slack for it. And I'm kind of like on the fence on how I feel. Not really. I know how I feel. So their rule is they never turn each other down. So anytime, like for example, anytime Travis wanted to have sex, we'd be having sex. Anytime I say I want to have sex, we'd be having sex. They never turn each other down. How do you feel about that rule?
Like quick answer, hell yeah, I love it. Mm-hmm. But I do understand that there's layers to it, right? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like you all heard on the last episode, we have, you know, we have a history with sex that wasn't always in the positive light, in a positive light. So I have to be very mindful of those things. Yeah. So quick answer would be like any other man would be like, hell yeah, that's awesome. But then it's also like, what does that come with? Just saying yes whenever. It's not that simple.
Yeah, it's not. I definitely disagree with it. Obviously, if you listen to last episode, I feel like we have to respect each other's boundaries. And having sex when you don't really want to is boring.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when you're having sex and you both really want it, it's the best sex.
It's insane.
Yeah. So it's like, why even have the mediocre, I'm doing it just out of a chore responsibility? Why? It's like,
but tell them their reasoning or her reasoning behind that.
I think it's because they're so busy that they kind of want to make sure, like, but even honest to me, I still don't think that that's right, because you could be super busy and like there might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes opening and you just need to chill.
It also kind of takes the fun out of it too, right? Because just like, I don't know. I started to enjoy it, like you all heard. Like I started to enjoy our sex life more once I knew basically what I was doing when it came to sex. So like when you're ready, the difference is, you know, night and day. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't imagine you just kind of like, or me enjoying you just
like, yeah, sure, come.
Yeah, real quick, come on. I got the spaghetti's boiling. Hurry up.
Yeah.
Pound, pound, pound.
And we've had those quickies, but we both wanted them quickies.
Yeah.
And it is exciting. It's different.
But like I said, nobody wants to see their partner while you're doing your thing. And it's just like blank. Mm-hmm.
Which I don't think they do. Like, I feel like they have that, it works for them and they have that understanding. And it's not like a dreadful thing when they do it for each other. And let me be real, I don't think Travis ever in his life will turn me down.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it once.
It's never happened.
I've thought about that. It's funny you say that. I've thought about that. Like, what if one day, I swear you would probably think like I'm like up to no good.
I don't know. It just has never happened. But he's a freak of nature, honestly.
I'm a freak.
But, you know, I also, though, am very, like, there have been times when we go to bed and you're knocked out in 2 seconds. And I respect that, you know, because you're exhausted.
And then the next morning she'd be like, I was in the mood. I was like, why didn't you wake me up?
And I'm like, yeah, see, he could be dead tired. If I nudge him, he's like, he rises from the dead.
Everything rises.
I'm dead. I can't stand you. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about from the episode was this term called intimate.
Okay.
So that basically means when you and your partner have different love languages. So you're intimate because basically you give and receive love in different ways. You have to learn how to give love in a different way than you like to receive it.
Okay. I feel like that's almost everyone.
Right? Like, yeah. It's probably everyone. So I just want you to tell me what you think my number one love language is and what you think my least.
Can you remind me of what they all
So he doesn't know them. Damn,
I know I know a few, but I don't know all.
It's good that we mention it anyway, because maybe not everyone knows. But physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, and I'm forgetting the last one. Words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, gifts. What's the other one?
You got your phone.
What's the other one? Why am I forgetting it?
I don't have to hit it. While you look it up, I could say,
Okay.
I know for a fact that physical touch is your number one.
Really? Okay. No, go ahead. I'm not saying you're
And then
wrong, but
I would say a close follow-up to the number one.
oh, quality time.
Ooh. Nah, I'm still going with physical touch.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, sorry, I'm just going to pull this.
Words of affirmation, acts of service.
I would say physical touch and acts of service are your,
Okay.
and then the least, I would say, especially nowadays, is probably gifts.
Gifts. Okay.
Am I close?
Yeah, you're pretty close. No, I think you're pretty good. Acts of service for me is big.
Yeah. But I think physical touch is.
But physical touch, like non-sexual intimacy too. I'm very like rub my feet, rub my back. If we're sitting next to each other, I want to feel like fingers tip.
Like we're watching TV, like, and my hands aren't on her feet. It's a fight.
I'm like,
a conversation.
Like shaking my feet on him, like nudging him.
Super passive aggressive.
Yeah, like.
What do you think mine are?
So I think yours are words of affirmation.
Okay.
Physical touch. And quality time. But let me clarify the quality time one. Quality time. Because I feel like for you, you just want to be together. Like, it doesn't have to be, like, we don't have to have anything planned. We don't have to activities. You could even be, like, on your computer and I'm, like, on the couch. But you just like us to be together.
Yeah.
So it's not really, like, time that's super planned out. But you just enjoy being in each other's presence. Words of affirmation. Because I feel like that was something I noticed early on. And I would consciously remind you of, like, how much I appreciate you or how much I love you. And, you know, those things. They're second nature now, but I feel like in the beginning, it was like a conscious thing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot on. I do think the further along we get into our relationship, I feel like acts of service are becoming more important to me. Like they.
But go ahead.
Go. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, like, I feel like those for me, though, are so second nature to me to do anyway, though.
Yeah, but it's also, like, noticeable when they aren't done. So.
Because you got spoiled.
I mean.
Honestly, like, I don't think acts of service was initially one of yours.
Hell no. I feel
like I'm just that person. I'm that type of way. You know, like, I'm the one who cooks the most and gets us in order. I'm just that person. Sets our appointments, all that. That's just me, and you've gotten spoiled.
Okay.
I don't think it was, like, on your priority list before.
Possibly. But, you know, it's a thing. And like I said, when it's not there, it's like, whoa, what's
like when? Go ahead. Spill the tea. What I've been slacking on.
No, I mean, I can't think of I have no example in this moment. I can, you know, do an update later for someone, but it's just very noticeable when it's not being done. So it's like, you know, the fuck is her problem? But yeah. But I think you're spot on with everything you said.
And acts of service is big for me. And you were very selfish in the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah, I was a selfish person previously. I mean, prior to you. So a lot of reprogramming.
Yeah, like he's you know, like you mentioned about your upbringing, kind of spoiled in a sense or privileged in a sense. And I feel like because of your parents' divorce and like your mom's second relationship that wasn't failed, I feel like she was overcompensating and like did a lot for you. So you never really learned how to do for others. And you were the youngest for like 13 years. Like your younger brother's like 13 years younger than you, right?
Yeah.
So you were the youngest, more spoiled for all that time. So you doing acts of service for me was kind of like you had to learn that and make a conscious effort.
Let's do it.
All right. So I think we're done. We could wrap it up.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Mm-hmm. Baby.
Yes.
Do you still like me?
I still like you, baby.
Love you.
Love you more.